Hello everyone, Herozen13 here today, and I am going to be doing, in this video, a Star Conflict tutorial on the Tackler class. Now, the Tackler class belongs to the fighter group of ships. It generally uses kinetic damage, though, as you can see, it does use different types of damage, like thermal and some EM weapons. Generally, the best tacklers I've found usually belong to the Federation, though Jericho do have some good ones as well, along with the new rank 16 Singularity. Currently, the highest ranked tackler for the Federation is the Jaguar Custom Ship, the Rockwell Premium Ship, and the normal Lion Mark II. The role of a tackler fighter is actually rather complicated in a way. A tackler's main job is to basically reveal targets and help his team take them down easier. A tackler is like the ECM fighter of the fighters. Usually, they carry 4 modules like all other ships. I use my own custom build, though other builds can vary from this. Target Painter is an absolute must. What this basically does is you attach this beam to them. It only uses a tiny amount of energy, so if you have even some energy regen, you can just keep it going non-stop. And it basically, when a target shield goes down, as it says here, it reduces the shield and hull resistances by 35 points. This can severely cripple weaker targets like interceptors and some fighters. The second module is one I like to take, is the engine suppressor. Basically, what this does is it reduces a target's speed by over 50%. However, unlike the Target Painter, this one does have a time limit and a cooldown, and it also takes quite a bit of energy to pull off. Basically, you want to use this while you're going head-on against an enemy, so that you can try and land your first missile. In order to chunk them, you can combine this with the Target Painter to severely cripple someone, and if anyone on your teammates has working eyeballs, they will follow up and that target will be dead. Please bear in mind that the Target Painter and the Engine Suppressor are both tether-based modules. And what this basically means is if the target goes out of basically either range or they go behind some form of solid obstacle, the tethers will break and they will no longer be affected by them. With the Target Painter, this really isn't an issue, as it literally has a recharge of 1 second. However, if someone can get out of the Engine Suppressor, that can be quite dangerous. Another thing tacklers have is their access to 2 types of sentry drones. There's the normal sentry drone, which deals thermal damage. It is not able to move in any way. No sentry drones from tacklers are. But this one uses thermal damage. It has a decent rate of fire. It usually attacks once every 3 seconds or so. And it also restricts the maneuverability of whatever it hits due to its thermal nature. And due to it being thermal, its attacks aren't actually that easy to dodge. You need to be very careful with them. There is also the Heavy Guard drone. I personally prefer the normal drone myself, but that is just me. This one deals EM damage, and it deals quite a bit more damage than the regular drone. However, its projectiles are quite slow. But another benefit it has is it blocks all non-afterburners movement abilities like blinks, dashes, teleports, etc, etc. Even warp gates can be affected. And finally, what I recommend is taking some kind of form of restoration. If you're playing a a Federation tackler, I personally recommend taking the hull restoration system, and I'll tell you why once we get to the signature module of the tackler. However, if you're taking a Jericho tackler, basically one of these guys, I recommend taking a shield booster, because Jericho are known for their incredibly high shields. Now, the signature module of a tackler is this. Special module ODG Chameleon. What this does is it removes your ship from radar, tracking, anything that's locked onto them, tethers, and the visible spectrum for basically however long the module says. It generally increases in time with the higher the ship rank. And if you're building the custom ship Jaguar, it can come with different modules. If I show you here, look, different ones have different stats because it removes the damage. Because it gives you it gives a damage increase upon you coming out, which when you combine with your tethers, like target painter, this engine suppressor, and the sentry drone, it can be quite a powerful combo if you're going head on. And also, there's one little thing with the Chameleon, is basically when you go into your invisibility, you have almost a 2-second window upon going in, where using modules and such won't actually break you out of invisibility. If you try and shoot, launch missiles, activate a module in the time after that while you're invisible, you will be brought out of invisibility. Now like I said before, I take the whole restoration system instead of the repair kit, because what this does is it slowly repairs your hull over a longer period of time. If you go invisible and then activate that module, it won't break you out of invisibility while it's regenerating you, even if you go past that 2-second limit. And enemies can't actually see the particle effect while you're invisible. So if you get into a firefight and you go into low health, you can activate your invisibility, get out of there, activate your heal while you're within that 2-second period, and it will regenerate your ship while you're invisible, so when you're fully healed up, you can come back around and mess someone else up. The Tackler has access to several different types of missiles, along with attack drones, which are usually only used for frigates. I personally like using them on Wasgar, because 6 drones. It also has access to Doomsday missiles, which are very powerful, but you actually need to go and find them. This is a recent one they've added called the Slowing Field Missile, which, as it said, upon exploding, all ships are slowed. Though bear in mind, it says all ships. This includes your allies, so you need to be very careful when using this. The piercing missiles are, as they say, they're basically the kinetic version of standard missiles, which are thermal. There's EM missiles, which are the standard EM missiles. The weapons the Tackler has access to are actually quite unique. You will always start out with an assault railgun. It's a good kinetic weapon, decent range on it. It's built for close range skirmishes. There's the Singularity Cannon, which, if you've ever played any PvE mission and having to fight a cruiser, you know just how powerful those things can be. There's the Ion Emitter. I haven't actually had a chance to use this yet, though from what I've seen it's quite good. There's the Gauss Cannon. I don't actually recommend using this on a Tackler unless you're specifically building for long-range combat like a PvE mission. Mainly because if you want to play with a Gauss Cannon, I'd personally recommend taking it on some form of frigate. There's the Gravity Beamer, which is what I actually recommend for the Tackler. It's a thermal damage weapon, but it also slows down up to 50%, meaning yes, if you combine this with an engine suppressor at max rank, you will bring your target to a complete stop, which can be very useful. There's the Flux Phaser. I personally haven't found this weapon to be very useful. It deals EN damage, and what it basically does is it projects this very thin laser that doesn't deal any damage, and basically this sort of like laser bolt follows it. When you release the trigger, it explodes. I find it to be very gimmicky and not actually work that much. And then there's the Thigh Lift Beam, which is the alien weapon. Deals thermal damage, and basically, as you fire it, you'll see this small circle appear in your crosshair that gradually gets bigger. Any enemy ship that's within that crosshair will be shot, and it actually costs energy after each target that you haven't locked on to shoot. So it's generally best to have some capacitors with max energy and energy regen. So going on to equipment, basically a tackler needs to be fast above all else. This is why I love the Federation Fighter. This current rank 15 Jaguar I'm playing with can usually average about speeds of just under 600 with this build, and I'm still maxing out its equipment at the moment. The standard build I go is to get 3 engine slots. That's a must on Federation. You want the speed. See, if I'm running a normal mission where I'm just going into fight, I will usually swap out the Werner engine for a second catalyst injector so I can get even more speed. I find the auxiliary generator is quite good for more maximum speed. The afterburner cost can be a pain, but with the way I've set this up with my 2 capacitors, my afterburners will only bring me down to half of my maximum energy, and then they will just sit there. So I can use afterburners forever, which is quite nice. Generally, I only took 1 shield slot because mainly for the submatter shield. It makes you more squishy, but you can fly faster, and anyone who's told you a Taikin is who needs defenses when you don't get hit in the first place. I took 2 hull slots just to add a bit of protection for mainly against homing weapons. Reinforced beams, they're a classic. They increase the hull strength by 22. And the regenerative coating, which mainly helps to restore the hull, because as I said, my capacitor sits just above 50% when using afterburners, so the regenerative coating will still work. And for finally, CPU, I took Enhanced Scanner, so a tackler can see further and basically point out targets to his team that he's going to engage upon. And that's about it for equipment. Bear in mind, this is just how I build my tackler. So you don't have to follow this instruction. This is just what I've found to work for me. And by the way, your tackler won't look like this when you've got it. I just have some color schemes set up on it. So you can basically, if you want to change the color scheme of a ship, you go down here to the little tuning button, and you go down into either presets or the 3 colors where you can assign different colors as such. Basically, while we wait, some quick tips is a tackler is built for hit and run attacks. You need to understand that, yes, while you can kill things, you're not going to survive against 3 decent fighters. That's a gunship's problem. You can actually work very well with a good guard frigate, because a guard frigate has the skills to keep you alive and to also slow down targets even further. Basically, what I like to think, as I've said in one of my other videos, is there are 4 classes of ships that we'll only be focusing on 3 of them. Those are interceptors, fighters, and frigates. And each one of those has 3 different types of ships, and each one of them has their own unique role. I find there's offense ships, the ships that are built to deal damage, like in interceptors that would be covert ops, for fighters it would be gunships, and for frigates it would be long range. There's support craft, which are built for supporting. This would be recon for interceptors, engineers for, obviously, the frigates, and the command fighter for fighters. And there's also what I like to call hybrids. These are basically craft that can deal damage, but they also help the team some way. These would be ECMs, tacklers, and guard frigates. So they can kill, but they can also help. Alright, it would seem we're playing with another tackler on this mission, a guard frigate and an engineering frigate, which is pretty good. As a Jaguar, do not hesitate to use invisibility. It's got a lower cooldown than you think. Now, the main role of a tackler early on is to use your visibility to get past, and you want to go and take out the snipers. Due to your high speed and invisibility, you're one of the only classes in the game that can actually get up and close to them. And with your target painter, they won't last very long. Okay, so it's very important to ping out targets that you activate. So I've activated both tethers, I've put down the sentry drone, and I'm opening fire on it. This is a technique I like to call orbiting. What it basically does is it allows you to be constantly moving around so they can't actually hit you. It's important to keep moving left and right at random intervals. Basically, this really works against frigates and destroyers. As a tackler, communication with your team is key. You need to point out what targets you're going for. By the way, little secret on fire support, you can use this as a shortcut to get to the snipers, if you don't suck at piloting like me. So when they start targeting you, don't be afraid to go into invisibility. And then you just gotta get into the right angle, drop the sentry drone. Yep, if you just keep moving, they won't be able to hit you. Just slight movements, you don't have to go crazy. Yeah, one rookie mistake is do not try and use your engine suppressor against snipers. They aren't worth it. Alright, so we're attacking this destroyer now, me and the other tackler. That's another thing, destroyer shields will be able to break your tethers, so you need to be careful of that. The durability of guard frigates always amazes me. Okay, so we're going around the ship, and we are just going to orbit him. So he can't hit us, but the rest... You won't be able to hit a target reliably while orbiting unless you're playing something like an interceptor. However, you really don't need to. You just need to make sure you keep your tethers on him. Okay. To fight a cruiser, you want to activate your invisibility to get past the turrets. Your main job is to get behind the cruiser and go straight for the engines. With your target painter, you can do really well against engines. You need to stay close enough to avoid the rocket turrets, but also far enough away from the engines so you don't get melted. And there you go. That's how a tackler plays. So basically, as you could see, it was all about maneuvering around my targets to make sure that I wasn't getting hit and that my team could also utilize the debuffs I was putting on them. Basically, as a tackler, you're really good against other fighters. Mainly because most fighters don't have the maneuverability that you do, and you can keep them locked down. Your target painter will easily nullify all commander boosts, and a gunship fighter will be blown to pieces if one of your teammates sees that you're currently fighting them. You do decently well against frigates. You can basically make... You can be the most annoying player in the world to frigates, but you won't be killing them anytime soon. Like, yeah, you're good against snipers, which is good, because in some missions the snipers spawn halfway across the map, and you're the only person who can get to them in time. And like, you can easily kill them. You could probably get away with killing an engineering frigate if they're alone, but a decent team will never leave the engineering frigate alone. And if you're trying to fight a guard frigate, just give up. You're not killing them, and if you make a couple of wrong moves, they will kill you. Interceptors you need to be careful of, because interceptors have ways of shutting you down. For example, a recon can just jump straight out of your tethers. An ECM is probably your worst nightmare. They are the interceptor version of tacklers. They're full of CC, they can ignore all your debuffs, and they will make your life a living hell. Basically, when you see one, stay with your team and lock them down with your engine suppressor. And covert ops, you will hate covert ops. A covert ops' plasma web can actually bring you out of your invisibility if they place it on you before you go into it, which can be very dangerous. Like, If you were skilled enough, you could take on a Covert Ops in a 1v1, but don't try to run from them. You won't be able to do that. I've also tend to find that a Tackler is generally considered to be the best class for open space. If I show you real quick, I'm gonna go do some missions out in open space because I need the Xeno chips at the moment to get some good ships. Like, I'd say Tackler is probably tied with Recon as the best ship classes for open space. Because, especially in PvP zones, because you can actually return to the station while you're invisible. And if you time it just right, you'll be able to get back before your invisibility runs out. And usually with those missions where you're supposed to hunt down a lone target, a Tackler is usually really good at that. Tacklers are built to be duelists if they have to kill. And with missions like these, where you have to collect minerals, it is generally very easy to pick them up. Because of your speed, you can get to them before other classes. An important thing to remember is in PvP sectors, if you have to do one of these where you have to escort transport, it is generally a good idea to go invisible the second it leaves the sector, because people will be willing to turn on you the second it's no longer required to play nice, basically. So that right there, that is the Tackler's invisibility. No one can see you unless they're on your team, and it can last for quite a good while. Usually around 12 seconds. And it can also be useful for avoiding open space enemies, especially crystalids, because they hit hard. Yeah, and these Marauder guys aren't much better. You can also collect stuff in open space while you're invisible. Yeah, because as I'm sure most players who have over 10 hours know, the Federation ships are generally the fastest, which is why it's generally better if you want mobility to pick a Tackler from the Federation and not Jericho. The Jericho Tacklers do have their fair share of good stuff. Oh dear, it looks like this transport's under attack. I would probably say that for Tackler, especially a rank 15 one like my Jaguar, the Gravity Beamer is probably one of the better weapons if you're looking for pure CC, or crowd control for people who don't know what CC means. Basically, that's the kind of thing you want to go for if you want to help the team more than to actually kill people. However, if you want to actually kill things, I recommend taking stuff like the railgun, or maybe a singularity cannon, stuff like that. One thing I would say that a Tackler is good for is mainly working with other ships in open space, especially if you're farming large amounts of energies, because your target painter does have a 1-second cooldown, meaning you can apply it to one thing and then take it off and apply it to another with almost no cost. One thing I have found that you work pretty well with in open space is a good destroyer or guard frigate, because a guard frigate is really not that mobile, and destroyers are even more so. So what you can do is basically slow them down so that they can deal damage, and they can hold all the loot for you. It's recommended you do this with someone that you trust, or in my case, can strangle in real life if they betray you. But yeah, because you can work with them very easily. You can go out and get loot and bring it back to them, and then because destroyers have large cargo spaces, I think average is 12 spaces per ship, you can basically just hang around with them. Right, I would like to thank you for watching my guide on Tacklers and me rambling about Tackler stuff. aside from destroyers, which are a personal pleasure of mine, tacklers would be my favourite class right next to engineering ships. I always do like playing support. It's just my thing. Great. I hope to see you all in the next video, whenever that comes out. See you later, guys.